Hi guys, this is Atco. Today is April 4th, 2021. I hadn't done a video for more than a year. Lots happened on the last year. Of course, the virus was the main thing. Affected everybody. And my wife and I had both our issues with medical issues during the year, and those are taken care of. So things I weren't able to do last year, like going to yard sales and ham fests, we've just been locked into the house. But hopefully things are coming to an end. My wife and I have both had our first shot of the vaccine, and maybe after that things might change. I've got a ham fest to go to, one of the bigger ones for me in my area, the end of May, and things keep going well. I'll actually go there. I think they said they're going to open it. Everybody has to have a mask when you get in there, and there's all the buildings are going to be closed, so it'll just be the tailgaters. But that's what I mainly go for anyways, and I'm looking forward to it because I would like to get out and do some of those, but also I got some stuff I'd like to get rid of. So hopefully that'll be the end of May, and maybe after that maybe even a few yard sales, so we'll see what happens. Okay, now what I wanted to do, I haven't done any videos for over a year, but I still get my comments coming people from my older ones, and one of the ones that I've gotten mainly from younger people, that when they look at those ones I've done of my model cars, you know, I've got well over 100, mostly 18 scale model cars all around my game room. And more than once I've been asked, why do you just take pictures of old cars? I mean, how come you don't have any newer cars? So I thought I'd explain why I do that. You know, before we began more adults, and we had so many things to do, getting a career going, and we had to have a family, and but prior to that, you know, when you were younger and junior high school and college, mainly there were things that meant to our life was going out to play and have our cars, and that was our life. Then all of a sudden things got more expensive, more serious, and a lot of other things were taking up a lot of time than just going out and playing. But those times that we remember when we were anywhere from you're probably 12, 13 years old to about 21, those cars meant a lot to your life. So when I've got all these cars, I like them because I remember those cars. Not all of them were even just old of me. A lot of the cars I've got are ones that were 5, 10, 15 years put out before me. But they were still old cars that I remember having them. And when I look at these old cars I got in the house, it is nice looking at the different models that I remember from those different manufacturers. But also, particular ones, the car model itself may remember me something that I had when I was a kid. Car might have meant something important to me at that time. And when I look at one of those old cars, it brings me back memories of more than just the car, but what else I was doing at that time. And I just thought I'd show you a few of the ones I go. I'm going to go through, bring out maybe 3 of them, and we'll talk about them a little bit. If it's interesting, I'll go through more. But for right now, let me just show you a few of these model cars that meant something to me. Now here, this is a Buick from 1954. I mean, I was born just about that time. So it's not a car that I remember buying, but what brings me back with this, when I was a kid, I always had trouble with my teeth from the time I was a kid, even till now. And I always hated going to the dentist. And there's one I used to have to go to. I was probably in my 6, 7, 8 years old, and I hated to go there. And whenever I had to go in to see him, he must have had a lot of bad nights drinking beer or whatever, because a lot of times he never showed up, and we'd be there waiting for him and he'd never show, and then we'd go. And I'll tell you what, that wasn't too bad for me, because I always waiting to see, when I had to go to see the dentist, maybe he won't show and I can go back home. So, but I remember he had, as the doctor, had one of these Buick 1954s. And what I remember the most is the tail lights. And I would go look into the parking lot of the shopping center where he had an office there. I'd always look to see if he had his car and look for those taillights. And if I didn't see it, then I knew that he didn't show and I can go home. Or one of those days, there's those lights and I know I'm going to have to go through some of the pain. So, this car, even now when I look at this thing, I get pain when I just think of this guy. I went to this dentist for a while and had so much trouble, so afraid of going to there, that my mom said, you know, I got to find another dentist. So we did find another one, and she would talk to me constantly and calm you down. And I never did enjoy being there, but she would get you thinking of other things constantly that takes off your mind of whatever they're working on to your teeth, and made it a little easier. It was kind of good when I was growing up using her. Okay, so I remember that now. Then there's a Cadillac. This is a 1955. Or it could be 56, one of those two. And they look pretty much the same. My neighbor was a contractor. As a matter of fact, he did our house across the street. And one day he was pulling out with this thing. Now this was probably, I'm talking here in the 60s. And he pulled out one day with this beautiful black 1955 Cadillac. And I remember my dad saying, hey Mike, where'd you get that Cadillac? And he said that one of his customers, who had a man there that had passed, and his wife said he would sell the Cadillac to him if he wants it, and he got a really, really good deal. And it had like 12,000 miles on it. I used to watch that beautiful Cadillac drive into the backyard of his house, getting into the garage. Never see him use it for hardly anything. I think he would take it when they go to the church or on Sunday or something, hardly used. But I always remember seeing that beautiful black Cadillac. So when I see this, I think of my neighbor Mike and his Cadillac. Now here's one going back a little after that. I was 17 years old, and I got out of high school, and my first job after high school was I was working with a parks for the city, and I got a job there. But we would go in there, we would clean up and put in new grass and things like that, and I would go there and do all that with whatever they tell me to do. And there's about 3 of us with this one boss there that took care of like the 3 of us, and he had this old 1953 Chevy. I mean, it's an old car at that time. This was probably at least like 15 years since it came up, and it was not in very good shape. But wherever I would go to park, he'd wait for us to get there in the parking lot. We'd get into his Chevy, and then he would drive us over to where the place where we were working. And what makes me remember, I'd go in that thing, he had this old like a sheet over top of the seats because it was all worn out and things weren't working. I remember he had to shift it off of from a hand on the side of the tree of the steering wheel, and it was broke off, and he had this old grip pliers. The thing was like this long, and it would cramp onto the steering wheel there, and well, the tree of the steering area, and then he would pull that thing off there to make his shift, which was a 3rd shift to get in. And I just thought that was so weird. He would just try to keep this running. He probably had $100, $200 in that thing, that's all. But I just remember that thing. We would get into that from where our cars were, and we would pull over to the park, and then we would do whatever we had to do. And once in a while, we had nothing else going on, we would go to another park, and we'd drive in his little Chevy and run in there and get what we need, come in. And I just remember that darn Chevy of his. And so when I see this car, first thing I remember was when I was working with the park company, and it was a good time for me. It was right where the first summer after high school. I did that for 3 months. So anyways, those, now when I look at those cars, that's what I think of. I don't think of the car itself. I think of all of a sudden, I remember being in that park with my friends there, and our supervisor, and of course my dentist, and those memories of that brings me back more than when I look at these cars themselves. So I might show you, if any of that's interesting to you guys, I might throw a few more of those on there after this, and see if makes you any memories of some of those years on some of those vehicles. Alright, well, again, this is Atco. I'm glad to be able to get on again and talk to you guys. So I hope you guys have been doing well, and I hope you're starting to get things back to normal. Hope you guys made it through this first year. Probably everybody had their own problems, so good luck to you all, and I'll talk to you guys again. This is Atco, signing off.